Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, so today we're diving into a really fascinating paradox. It's the story of this tiny, totally unassuming white crystal that completely shaped human history. For thousands of years, this substance was literally one of the most valuable things on Earth. So buckle up because this is a story about wealth, survival, and ultimate power. I mean, think about it for a second. What built massive empires, funded armies, and inspired actual revolutions, but costs only pennies today? It's kind of incredible to consider how something we barely even think about right now, something sitting casually on practically every dining table in the world, used to be the absolute most valuable substance on the planet. Entire civilizations literally rose and fell depending on who controlled it. Section 1. The biology of white gold. So before there was commerce, right, there was biology. The human body literally cannot function without salt. And long before we understood the science of biology, early humans fundamentally understood salt's importance for survival. I mean, it helps our muscles move, it allows our nerves to send essential signals, and it helps our cells maintain the perfect balance of water. Because we needed it so desperately, early humans would watch animals travel massive distances just to reach natural salt licks. And, well, we simply followed them right to those valuable sources. Section 2. Foundation of early civilizations. Get this. Over 8,000 years ago, archaeologists tell us there was organized salt production in Romania that actually makes this industry older than the Egyptian pyramids. And speaking of the Egyptians, thousands of years ago, they discovered that salt could preserve things. Using minerals like natron, they preserved food to survive harsh seasons, fed their growing populations, and of course, created mummies that have survived perfectly for millennia. Then, over in China, salt became so absolutely critical that the government established a state monopoly over it. And in a brilliant twist of history, while Chinese engineers were drilling deep into the earth for salt brine, they accidentally struck natural gas. They actually used that gas to fuel their salt boiling operations centuries before similar technologies popped up anywhere else in the world. Section 3. Building empires and economies. Once humanity figured out how to harvest this stuff, it became the foundation of staggering wealth. The Romans built massive infrastructure, including specific roads like the Via Salaria, literally just to transport salt. It was so vital that Roman soldiers were given a payment called a salarium. That's a Latin term that eventually evolved into the modern English word, you guessed it, salary. So every single time you get your paycheck, you're experiencing a direct linguistic echo of the ancient salt trade. And the wealth generated wasn't just a Roman phenomenon either. Picture this. Across the immense Sahara Desert, giant camel caravans carried these massive, heavy blocks of salt to West African markets. In some regions, salt was traded ounce for ounce with gold. I mean, literally equal weight. This intense trade helped build the powerful empire of Mali and contributed to the unimaginably vast wealth of rulers like Mansa Musa. Over in medieval Europe, cities like Venice and Salzburg grew rich purely by controlling salt production. Their salt revenues funded armies, navies, and the magnificent architecture we still admire today. Now, compare all of that to its status today as a cheap, everyday commodity. The contrast is just staggering. Section 4. A catalyst for revolution. Now, here's the darker side. Wherever salts created immense wealth, it also created massive conflict and crushing inequality. You really can't have a resource that is literally required for human survival locked behind a paywall without extreme consequences. And perhaps nowhere was this more obvious than in France. As France moved toward revolution in 1789, one of the most intensely hated symbols of inequality in the entire country was the salt tax, known as the gabelle. For centuries, the French state forced ordinary, impoverished people to pay incredibly high prices for a substance they literally needed to live. Thousands of people were severely punished just for smuggling untaxed salt. So when the revolution finally erupted, the deep, boiling resentment toward the gabelle played a massive role. Section 5. The weapon of protest. 240 miles. That is the exact distance Mahatma Gandhi walked in 1930. To challenge British colonial rule in India, Gandhi embarked on his famous Salt March. He walked all 240 miles to the sea, simply to publicly collect salt from the water in absolute peaceful defiance of strict British colonial laws. He didn't use guns. He didn't use an army. Millions of people simply followed Gandhi's example, By walking to the ocean and picking up a handful of untaxed salt, they turned a basic mineral into a powerful weapon of political protest, striking a massive blow against an entire global empire.
Section 6. The Era of Abundance.
Then, seemingly overnight, in the grand scheme of human history, the whole game changed. The ancient power of the white gold was just stripped away, and the catalyst for this sudden shift? The Industrial Revolution. New, highly efficient mining techniques were developed. Modern transportation, like railroads and steamships, were introduced, meaning heavy goods could suddenly be moved cheaply, and massive, previously unreachable underground salt deposits were discovered. Technology suddenly transformed salt from a rare strategic resource worth its weight in gold into one of the absolute cheapest and most abundant commodities on Earth. Which brings us to a fascinating modern twist. Today, the world produces hundreds of millions of tons of salt every single year. But despite its incredibly rich history of preserving our meals and keeping our bodies alive, the vast majority of salt produced today goes straight into industry. It's used for manufacturing chemicals, de-icing roads, and creating plastics. We produce way more of it than ever before, but we actually eat only a tiny fraction of it. So, what should you really take away from this explainer? Well, the story of salt teaches us one very profound lesson. When technology makes a resource abundant, the power surrounding it completely disappears. For thousands of years, whoever controlled salt controlled wealth, trade, and global power. But the very moment human innovation made salt easy to get, all that absolute power simply vanished. The next time you reach for that salt shaker on your dining table, remember that you are holding something that literally built empires, funded armies, and inspired major revolutions. Honestly, few substances have shaped human history as much as this tiny white crystal. And it leaves us with this final, really provocative question. If something as powerful as salt could lose its extreme value purely because of technological innovation, what currently powerful resources that our world fights over today will completely lose their value tomorrow? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.